The challenges of adolescence, judgment and pressure from peers. I believe that the greatest challenge teens face is judgment from peers. This judgment is the seed that bullying, harassment, depression, anxiety, and more can stem from. These judgments can range from snide comments here and there, exclusion based on someone's initial impression, or straight-up harassment. Additionally, this judgment can go hand in hand with peer pressure, as the urge to fit in and avoid bullying and other effects of judgmental teens is enough motivation for most adolescents to mindlessly go along with whatever is seen as cool at that time. When articles discuss how judgment from teens increase peer pressure within age groups, this peer pressure is shown to lead to early drug usage, sex, and more. Judgment is the greatest challenge teenagers face because the amount of pressure surrounding all types of judgment from fellow teens is overwhelming, especially at such a crucial age. This judgment can lead to social isolation, estranged relationships, rumors, bullying, etc. These behaviors will often put teens on a very negative, self-destructive path. Others' opinions influence us much more than we'd like to acknowledge, and for impressionable teenagers, they are all the more dangerous. Peer pressure and judgment can have different effects on teens of different races. Judgment and peer pressure in teens can be amplified according to race due to preconceived biases. It has been stated that peer pressure to use drugs and alcohol is one of the strongest predictors of adolescent substance use. In addition to this normative stressor, African American adolescents often also face race-related stress in the form of racial discrimination. Studies performed regarding level of peer pressure in relation to drug and alcohol consumption corresponding to race found that teacher and peer perpetrated racial discrimination experiences were related to higher alcohol use. When discussing the effects on male versus female teens, we must acknowledge that all genders do experience judgment and pressure from all sides. However, men generally face more intense pressure to indulge in high-risk activities. Meanwhile, females are more likely to struggle with jealousy and mean girl behaviors. The urge for both boys and girls to compare themselves to everyone and everything present in their environment shows us how extremely susceptible young people are to the influence of whatever they idolize at that time. The effects on non-binary, non-conforming individuals in adolescence often show that they are subject to more judgment from their peers. Teenagers who identify with they/them pronouns or otherwise are less normalized to identify as anything other than a girl or a boy, an aspect of our society that must change. A study conducted the past few years reveals that higher levels of peer-reported gender nonconformity were associated with higher self- and peer reports of overt and rational victimization and relational victimization and aggression among males and females. Teenagers with disabilities are often set apart from the crowd. Due to this, peer pressure and judgment can affect them differently. They are judged based on their differences, whether that be physical or mental, and therefore treated differently. UNICEF confirms that children and adolescents with disabilities are one of the most marginalized and excluded groups in society, experiencing widespread violations of their rights. Due to ignorance, race and ethnicity are often not recognized as two separate things, especially in adolescent groups. However, teens of different ethnicities are affected differently by judgment and peer pressure due to both intentional and unintentional bias ranges and judgment. Exclusion based on ethnicity can sometimes lead to deeper effects because it can be an affront to one's culture and therefore identity. These potential deeper effects may include racial trauma. Racial trauma, or race-based traumatic stress, refers to the mental and emotional injury caused by encounters with racial bias and ethnic discrimination. Some may disagree with my claim that judgment and peer pressure are the greatest challenges that teens face. According to studies conducted by Pew Research Center, there are more prevalent issues regarding teens, such as suicide rates, lack of drive, depression, and much more. While all of these issues are extremely important and worthy of address immediately, however, judgment and peer pressure are often what leads to much of this. They are the root of the issues. When you really think about it, adolescent and judgment pressure must be addressed, and in the process, many other problems with teens today would be dealt with by association. The correlation between mental health and peer pressure is undeniable, as stated by Jelena Cruz in her documentation of psych education. Once this correlation is recognized, it's blatantly clear that these mental health problems like depression and anxiety are rooted in the judgment of the peer environment and nature of teenagers. So, how can we overcome this issue? While overcoming peer pressure is an extremely challenging feat for all ages, especially teenagers, because the desire to fit in and be well liked seems like basically one of the most important things, especially at a young age. A strong sense of identity and staying strong in one's own morals is the key to resisting peer pressure. Once you feel solid in your own identity and self, then it is much easier to resist the judgment and not care as much what people think. However, this is much easier said than done, and the real issue of finding inner strength and denouncing social norms and pressure in order to relieve yourself of judgment and reach a place where you can make decisions that are healthy for you, disregarding other opinions. Strategies such as not taking yourself seriously and leading with humility are ways to begin this journey. The end.